I'm so happy that you're here and I'm so excited about today's video. I say that every time, but we're doing another book video. I love doing these. It's just so much fun to sit down and talk about books, and I've been thinking about doing this video for a while, so I decided to put it in my little summer series, and it is summer book recommendations. Now we are kind of pretty far into summer. It's currently July, but here in Alabama we will have summer probably till October. It will stay hot till then, so I wanted to still do this video because I have a lot of recommendations. I have a lot of books that I really love that I think you should read in the summertime, whether they be like summer based, like they have like lake house or beach house vibes, or they're just really good wholesome romances that I think you should read in the summer. So I'm so excited about this video. I also have quite a few in like paperback that I own, which is super fun, so I'm excited to go through those. Let's start strong with my favorite summer romance. Favorite romance probably ever. It's so good, but it just happens to be set in the summer, and it's Every Summer After by Carley Fortune. This book is so good. I actually read it on my Kindle and loved it so much that I bought the physical copy. This is actually her debut novel, which is insane because it's been everywhere and it's literally incredible. Like, it's such a good book. And the cover, like, summery vibes. Like, are you kidding me? This is like the perfect summer read. And it's just so good. So basically it's about this girl named Persephone and this guy named Sam, and basically it's like a second chance romance, like childhood friends to lovers, which is my favorite romance book to read. It says 6 summers to fall in love, 1 moment to fall apart, a weekend to get it right. So basically you go through Persephone or Percy and Sam in 6 summers when they were kids, as they are friends, fall in love, all that stuff, and then something happens and they fall apart, they break up, and then years later they reunite and you see what happens. I love that trope so much, and I love this book so much. It's the best one. If you're gonna read one book out of this whole video, you should read Every Summer After because it's incredible. It's set in Barry's Bay, Canada. Everything that you could want in a summer romance and in a romance in general. I love it so much. It's like one of my top favorite romances of all time, but also it's like perfect for summer. If you want some books that are very similar to that, I would recommend Love in Other Words by Christina. You've probably heard of it. It's so good. I actually read it like maybe a year and a half ago, so honestly I need to reread it because it's kind of like fuzzy what happens in the book, but I do know it's a second chance romance, childhood friends to lovers. It's about Elliot and Macy, and basically they lived in lake houses and next to each other when they were kids, which is very similar to Every Summer After. They become friends, fall in love and stuff as they're kids, and then something happens, they stop talking. Years later they reunite, so you get that same kind of vibe. Such a good book. I need to reread it so I can get the full like experience and buy the book with the new cover because it has a new cover now. And then also The Infinity Between Us by N.S. Perkins, also very similar vibes. It's about Violet and Will and their families own this beach house together. It's like the same trope. They become friends, fall in love, all this stuff, something happens, they don't talk anymore, and then years later they reunite at this house again because one person wants to sell it. Oh, hit my tripod, because one person wants to sell it and one person does it. But I didn't enjoy it as much as Every Summer After, and I don't think as much as Love in Other Words either, but I do highly recommend it. It's very similar vibes, and it's like not as talked about. I feel like it's not as popular as other books, but if you want the same vein of second chance romance, childhood friends to lovers, beach house, lake house vibes, you should read that one as well. Let me fix my tripod because I knocked it. Okay. Next book I just finished last week. It was so good, and it's The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. I love this book so much. It's like such a summery vibe. I've heard people say it's like Visco Girl Summer. Honestly, don't know what that means, but I enjoyed it so much. I think it's a YA romance, so it's very like wholesome, no like explicit scenes, which I really like. I can't say the same about the other ones I just recommended. Definitely have explicit scenes, but this one does not, so if you want that, I recommend it. So basically it's about this girl named Meredith, and her family go to Martha's Vineyard usually every summer. They are going back again for the first time since Meredith's sister Claire passed away for her cousin's wedding. I think they only spent like a week there, so this book is basically set in like 1 week. It's literally the whole book is in 1 week. So they get there, they have the wedding, but before the wedding they play a game of assassin, and in the meantime she meets one of the groomsmen, and you just kind of see what happens. But it's such a good book because I just loved the like summery vibes, but I loved like the family dynamics, I loved the romance, I loved like how it touched on her grief and like how she was getting through that, and it was just so wholesome. Like I loved it so much, and I actually didn't finish it like super fast because I wanted to savor it because I loved it so much. So I highly recommend this book. You see the cover, it's like perfect summer vibes. Next is, of course, the Summer I Turned Pretty series by Jenny Han. I just read this in June, and it's also a TV series. So basically it's about this girl named Belly, and her mom, and her brother go to this beach house every summer with her mom's best friend and her 2 sons. And basically it's like a love triangle with her mom's best friend's 2 sons. You probably know what it's about because you've seen the series, but it's so good. The first book is especially like very summery, very like beachy vibes. You're just reading like her going to the beach and her doing fun things at the summer house and like kind of just like relaxing summer vibes. Like so good. I loved that in the first book. It gets sadder in the second book, and the third book is just a great conclusion. So if you just want a good summer series romance, you need to read it and also watch the series because it's so good. Like the series, like the TV show, incredible. Highly recommend. The next book is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I've talked about this book before and it's so good. So basically it's about this girl named January, and she is a writer, so she's kind of having like a writer's block situation, and she also just had something happen in her family, so she goes to her dad's beach house and spends the summer there basically to write and hopes to get out of her writer's block. And the next door neighbor is Augustus, who she actually knew in college and didn't really get along with. They kind of had like a competition kind of vibe. He's also experiencing writer's block, so they decide to swap genres, and he will write a romance, she will write like a adventurous fiction or something. It is obviously set, it's called Beach Read, it's set at a beach house, but I do think it's a little, there are some heavier moments, but it's just such a good book. I loved it so much. It's one of my favorite romances of all time, and probably my favorite Emily Henry book. I have not read People We Meet on Vacation. I've tried to read it twice and I have not been able to get into it, but I'm sure it would be a great summer romance. Like if you wanted to read it in the summer, it would probably be great because of the title and just what it's about, but I haven't been able to finish it, so I don't know. But the next one is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I also wanted to recommend this as we're talking about Emily Henry because this is such a good, like such a fun vibe. I don't necessarily think it's like summery, but like the cover, like you just probably want to read this when you're at the pool. Basically it's about this girl named Nora. She is a literary agent from New York City. She goes to this little small town in North Carolina with her sister on like a little trip, and she runs into Charlie, who she didn't really have a good experience with in New York City. He is an editor, and they just didn't have a great experience the first time they met, so you kind of just see what happens in this small town. It has good banter. The sister dynamic is really good, and I just really enjoyed it. I tabbed it as well. I think this is the first book I tabbed, and I've just been having a great time doing that. But it says, one summer, 2 rivals, a plot twist they didn't see coming. So such a fun read, but like the banter's so good, and I just loved it, so highly recommend. Now into something kind of in the same vein of writers, and that is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegemund Broka. I just finished this in June and I had mixed thoughts about it, but overall I did really enjoy the book, and it is very summery. So basically it's about this girl named Katrina and Nathan, and they were co-writers. So they wrote this best-selling novel and then they basically just stopped talking. People are speculating like what happened. Did they not like each other? Did they not like writing together? Did something happen? Did they have an affair? 4 years later they have to write another book together, so they go to this house in Florida to write the book. I am recommending this because it's set in Florida, obviously, so very like beachy vibes, as you can see by the cover. So it's just a fun summer romance, and I really enjoyed it. I also tabbed it. It's also written by co-authors, and they wrote about co-authors, which was just really fun. So I loved that about it too. The next book is It Happened One Summer by Tessa. I actually read this in like November or December, so definitely didn't read it in the summer, but by the title, obviously it would be a great book to read in the summer. And it's basically about this girl named Piper. She's like a socialite in LA, and her stepdad sends her to this little small town to her late father's restaurant to basically like help her get her life together because she keeps getting into trouble. So while she's there, she meets this guy named Brendan, who is like a fisherman, crab fisherman or something, kind of enemies to lovers in a way, and I just really enjoyed it. I would say that it's probably the most explicit out of all these book recommendations. The spicy scenes are just very explicit, which I did not enjoy, but overall I really liked the book. I just love when people from like big cities go to small towns. The next book is The Unhoneymooners by Christina. I don't think I've talked much about this book on my channel, and it's because I didn't give it like a super high rating, but I did enjoy the book, and it's very much like a summer vibe. So it's about this girl named Olive, and she is at her sister's wedding, and basically everyone at the wedding besides Olive and the best man Ethan get sick. Like, they eat the food and they get sick. So basically the bride and the groom can't go on their honeymoon, so they give it to Olive and Ethan to go to Hawaii. It's very much enemies to lovers. They did not like each other at all, and they end up going on this honeymoon together. I've heard people talk about how like the end is kind of a different plot, like the plot changes, which I can definitely see about the book, but I did really enjoy it. I feel like I read it before it kind of became popular, but I thought it was super cute little summer romance, and it's just really fun because it's set in Hawaii. Who doesn't love a nice Hawaii book? Love Hawaii. So highly recommend that if you just want that kind of summery romance. It's not my favorite out of all these books, but it's very summery, so I wanted to mention it. The next book is Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid. This book really isn't like a romance. It's more of like a literary fiction, but I did really enjoy it, but also would say that it's very much like a pretty heavy book, but it is set in Malibu. Pretty much the whole book is in Malibu. So it's basically about this girl named Nina and her siblings. Nina and her siblings had a very famous father, and you just kind of see what happens in their childhood with their parents. And then the second half of the book is basically at a party in Malibu at Nina's house, and just a lot of stuff goes down at this party. Jenkins Reid is just such a good writer. If you want that kind of like Malibu summary thing, you can definitely read this book, but I would just know that's a little heavy. I feel like no one talks about that. When I read it, I was like, this is like heavy. Like, there's some heavy stuff going on. The last few aren't really set in like summery places. I just felt that they were really wholesome romances that I would recommend reading, and I think they would be great books to read in the summer. So the first one is the Friendzone series by Jimenez. I have the third book in this series. I got it for Christmas and didn't realize it was like a series that you should kind of read in order. So I only have the third book, but all three books are so good. I loved them so much, and if you read them in order, you can definitely see like the characters in each book, which I really liked. But if you read them as standalones, you definitely would understand the story. I just love Jimenez. She writes such good books. There are some like heavier topics in her books, but she's very good at making it lighthearted, so I really love that. I love the series. And then also by her is Part of Your World by Jimenez. I just read this last month, and it's her new release from I think April, and I love this one as well. It's just a very wholesome romance. It's like a small town, big city vibe. So Alexis is from a big city. She's a doctor, and she meets this guy from a small town because she drives through the small town and breaks down, and he helps her. His name is Daniel. It's so cute. The found family is so good. Like, the family in this small town is so cute, and I love that you got Daniel's point of view. Just a big fan. Also not really set in summer, but I just think it's a wholesome romance that you should read. I love anything Jimenez writes. It's just so good. I think every book that she's written I've given 5 stars. Just wanted to shout out to those two like series and books that are just super wholesome and highly recommend to read. So to end this video off, I wanted to share a couple books that are on my TBR for the summer that I really want to read that are really like summery vibes. So the first one is Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett, and I think it's set in California, I'm pretty sure. And basically she goes to California and she is talking to this guy online, and she moves to his town, but he doesn't know that. And then she meets this other guy while she's there. I'm very excited to see how that one is. And then I also want to read The Two of Us by Taylor Torres. I actually just saw this on my Instagram today. I'd never heard of it, and I think it's literally coming out tomorrow because I looked it up on Amazon and it said it's on Kindle Unlimited on July 12th, which is tomorrow. By the time you see this and watch this, it will be out. So I'm very excited to read that. It's like a summery, like childhood friends to lovers, I'm pretty sure. So I'm very excited about that one. I feel like it's gonna be so good, and the ratings are so good. The reviews are incredible, so I'm excited. I've been talking for a very long time, and I think that is all for my book recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe. I post every Tuesday and Saturday here on YouTube, and I would love to hear what books you want to read this summer or what books you recommend for the summertime. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that. I post fun stuff over there, and I also have a book Instagram where I post fun recommendations, fun book photos, stories, updates on what I'm reading, so you should do that. But I think that's it, so I'll see you very soon for my next video. Bye.